Hi all, welcome to today's class. Today we are going to deal with chapter 3, Introduction to Database Management System. Our today's topic is ER model. So let us see what is ER model. An ER model is used to know the concept of database design, and this model consists of all the entities where each of these entities will be interconnected with each other with conditions and dependencies. So an ER model is used to know the design and concept of a database. It is also used to know how the entities are connected. What are the conditions used in the entities? Which all entities are dependent? So what is an entity? You may be thinking about what is an entity. Entity is nothing but a heading, a row, a column where the informations are stored. So how the columns are interconnected? It is known by the ER model. In order to construct a ER model, three basic concepts are used. First one is entity or entity type. Second one is attributes. Third one is relationship. These are the three main concepts used in ER modeling. First, let us see about entity or entity type. An entity can be anything, a real world object or animation which is easily identifiable by anyone, even by a common man. So, what is an entity? It can be anything what we see around us, which can be easily identified by anyone. So, let us see the types of entity. There are three types of entity: strong entity, weak entity, and entity instance. So now let us study about these three types of entities. First, let us see what is a strong entity. A strong entity is an entity in a database which does not depend on any other entity in the database, which can stand alone, which will be unique, which can have a primary key. So a strong entity is an entity in the database which can stand alone without depending on any other entities in the database. These strong entities are represented by one rectangle. So when we draw the diagrams, the strong entities are represented by a single rectangle like this. So roll number, you know that. There cannot be two same roll numbers. One cannot be two times. Two cannot be two times. So a strong entity is an entity which does not depend on any other entity in the database. Second one is weak entity. A weak entity is dependent on other entities and it does not have a primary key like the strong entity. So any entity in the database which needs a dependency to other entity in the database, those entities are known as weak entities. These weak entities are represented using double rectangle. weak entities are used represented by double rectangle. So a weak entity is an entity which depend on other entities and cannot have a primary key. Next one is the entity instance. The values of an entity is known as instance. So for example, here an example is given: animals. Animal is an entity. So when we say animal, all the animals are included in it. Dog, cat, cow, dog, elephant, giraffe, whatever it may be. So everything is included in that. So a instance is the value of an entity. So an entity instance denotes the category values for the given entity. So what kind of entities or what kind of values should be entered in the entity is known by the entity instance. So here we have a small diagram which will help you to understand more about the different types of entity. So staff. Staff is a strong entity. So how can we identify a strong entity? It will be having only a single rectangle. So here we have two weak entities. So weak entity is represented by double rectangle. So here, what are the instance of these weak entities? So when we come to teaching staff, Mr. Jose, Mr. Ravi, Mrs. Bensi, all are the entities of teaching staff. When we come to non-teaching staff, Mr. Jobit, Mr. Binu, Mrs. Aniza, all are the instance of non-teaching staff. So here, staff is a strong entity and teaching staff and non-teaching staff are weak entities. And the names what you can see there are the entity instance. So I hope that you all understood the three instance or entities. So strong entity which does not depend on any other entities in the database. Weak entity is an entity which depend on any other entity in the database. And entity instance are the values used by the entity in the database. So thank you students. Have a nice day. Stay home and stay safe.